It's time for Come and Talk It with your host, Michael Cargill, brought to you by Texas Law Shield. Over the last decade, Michael has championed and supported the rights of law-abiding Texans to own and use firearms. He is the owner of Central Texas Gun Works, a veteran of the United States Army, and has achieved national exposure in such prestigious media outlets such as Forbes Magazine, Fox Business News, CNN Money, AOL, BBC World News, Huffington Post, and the New York Times. Cargill vigorously defends lawful gun ownership in this country without regard to party politics. And now, here's Michael Cargill.
Good day, Austin, Texas, the live music capital of the world. Let's praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. Let's go to Philadelphia, where a teenager, 14 years old, stops a robber from stealing money out of the cash register. He shot him in the face. That's right. You know what? Today, I think we're gonna change that little theme a little bit. You know, we're gonna teach you how to get away with murder. Let me tell you, because the things that I'm seeing around the country, like what happened in Austin, Texas, just yesterday, where you have criminals that go into the mall at around 8 o'clock p.m., where shoppers are, the mall's filled with people Christmas shopping. They go into the jewelry store. They smash the glass, steal jewelry, and being that we're in Austin, in this very liberal city, people mistake the smashing of the glass as gunshots. You believe that, Zach? Yeah, they kind of confuse the smashing of the glass as actually gunshots, and it sent the entire mall in a complete panic. People were running. They're grabbing their kids. There was some people were at the movie theater. They cleared that out of the movie theater. It was just complete chaos. Huge law enforcement and EMS presence. And it turned out that it was a group of people went into the store, went into the mall, smashed the glass cases, stole jewelry. And people just panicked and ran because they thought they heard gunshots. Someone called 911, shots fired, police responding, with shots fired with the information that they have. And the police did exactly what they're supposed to do. Get there, secure the scene, evacuate the entire mall, and trying to figure out what in the world's going on. This is what happens when you're in a city. You live in an area that people don't know, don't listen. They don't pay attention to their surroundings at all. Their situational awareness is terrible, and they can't tell a difference between glass breaking and a gunshot. Just insane to me. And so complete chaos, and just, man. But good job to law enforcement, the way they handled that situation. Good job to EMS, and no one was injured. No one was shot. But it was a huge event. They thought it was going to be the worst because of some threats that have been sent out, over this past week, like on social media, where someone said there's going to be like a shooting at a school or something, and so everyone's all on edge. You just have to go about your day and be aware of your surroundings at all times. Situational awareness, that's what we're talking about. But you know what? That Philadelphia. This young man in Philadelphia, I want to tell you a little bit about this a little bit. So a guy goes into a family-owned store in Philadelphia, and he, goes to pay for something at the store, and he hands the clerk some money. The clerk opens up the register to put the money in the register. The guy reaches over the counter, tries to snatch all the money out of the register. The son standing behind his parent there at the register pulls out a handgun and shoots this guy in the face, drops him, stops him right there. When it comes, you need to understand the difference between robbery and theft. Theft is when someone swipes something without you noticing it. Someone pickpockets you. They swipe your wallet out of your back pocket. That's theft. Someone goes to your house, takes your Amazon package. That is theft. When it comes to theft, you cannot use deadly force for theft during the daytime. You can only use deadly force for theft at night. But when it comes to robbery, aggravated robbery, when someone's taking something from you with force, give me your wallet, give me your money, and they're grabbing for it and taking it from you with force, then you can use force or deadly force to stop them. It doesn't matter if it's daytime or nighttime in Texas. And so you need to know the difference between, difference of that, like for example, you're at the mall. They break the glass cases. They, take the they take stuff out of the glass case. Um, that can be considered theft. If they're using a weapon, they're using some force, then now it changes to robbery. So it kind of depends on what it is. You need to be sure what it is before you pull a gun out and use it. All right. And also, over in New York City, New York, the state of New York is trying to shut down Texas gun stores. They're trying to shut down gun stores all around the country. So this week, what we did was we actually filed a lawsuit against the state of New York, against the governor of the state of New York. I actually joined with a group of manufacturers, a group of distributors, and other gun stores around the country where we're suing. And I joined, Central Texas Gun Works joined with Glock. We joined with Smith & Wesson. We joined with some other manufacturers, Beretta, and also a bunch of other distributors or major distributors around the country. And National Shooting Sports Foundation is leading the charge where we're suing the state of New York. Because here's what's going on, people. You need to know this. The state of New York says that if I sell a gun, I'm a federal firearms licensed dealer. And if I sell a gun to someone here legally in Texas, they come into the gun store, they fill out a 4473, I do a background check on that person, they get a proceed, out they go with the gun. If that gun is stolen from that person, and then that gun winds up somehow in the state of New York and used in a crime, the state of New York says they can come and sue me for that. They can sue me, they can sue the distributor and the manufacturer. So they're trying to sue us and put us out of business. And so we filed a lawsuit in federal court this past week against the state of New York, the governor, because they're coming after us, and they're coming after us hard. And so we have no choice but to fight back. Can't wait until until the state of New York files a civil suit against us. We need to stop them at the path. And there are things that are in place to stop this. Okay. And we come back from the break. I'm going to tell you those different things that are out there. There's what we call the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act that was enacted back in 2005. I'm going to tell you about that and how that fits in this, because the state of New York is trying to legislate interstate commerce. We're supposed to be able to pass products across state lines. And you know what? Firearms are some of the most, you have to go through a background check to get a gun. That's the one item that you actually have to get a federal background check in order to possess. They don't do that for automobiles. If someone, steals a car, someone takes a car and they injure someone in the state of New York, they don't go after the manufacturer of the vehicle. They don't go after the car dealership. They don't go after those people. They go after the person that's driving the vehicle or the company that's who owns the vehicle. That's who they go after. Not the company that sold the vehicle or the manufacturer that made the vehicle. That's now how things are done in this country. And so you can't, and when it comes to firearms, we actually have a Federal Protection of Law Enforcement Commerce in Arms Act of 2005. We come back from the break. We're going to talk about that. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Folks, this is Doug Man Jones. And I get my gun news from Michael Cargill at Come and Talk It.
Hello, my name is Edwin Walker. I'm an independent program attorney with Texas Law Shield. I want to talk to you today about an issue that we see on a daily basis. In fact, you yourself will encounter it on a daily basis, and that is the subject of road rage. I am sure that you have all seen road rage. You may have actually been involved in a road rage incident. Now, if you're a responsible gun owner, I'm going to give you a few words of advice on how to react when you find yourself in one of these unfortunate road rage incidents. While on the roadways, we all observe something that makes us upset. Whether it's poor driving, unsafe driving, or just simply somebody being very discourteous. by all means, you should restrain yourself from engaging that person and telling them how bad their actions were, because this can be perceived as an act of road rage. If you're a lawful gun owner, you have a firearm in your vehicle, you do not want to be viewed as the aggressor in a road rage situation. Now, with regard to a situation where an individual has chosen to rage against you, and you are the actual victim of the road rage, if you and the other individuals are still in their automobiles, do not use your firearm to respond to any of the rager's activities. This is because law enforcement views the fact that you're both still safely in your metal boxes as removing any threat of immediacy that you may be harmed. So please, if you have a gun, somebody is raging against you, forget you have a gun. Don't display it, don't brandish it, don't show it, don't point it, and for God's sake, don't fire it. This could result in a lot of trouble for you. Now let's look at a situation where a road rage incident has escalated. It has escalated to the point where one of the participants has actually gotten out of their vehicle. We recommend that you stay in your vehicle at all times. Do not exit your vehicle, because the person who exits their vehicle is going to be looked at as the aggressor. If the other individual has exited their vehicle and they are not in contact with your vehicle and they do not have a weapon, then do not feel that you can display your weapon in an act of self-defense. People are allowed to just simply stand there and scream at you, scream whatever they want. Until they make a demonstrative effort to try to harm you, there is no immediate threat that would justify displaying or shooting or brandishing your firearm. Now, in the event that the person shows their own weapon, in particular a firearm, the existence of their weapon would give you reasonable belief that there was an immediate.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're back and we're talking about what's going on in the state of New York. So we've gotten with a group of manufacturers, gotten with a group of distributors and other gun stores around the country to file a lawsuit, a federal lawsuit in district court. So the state of New York is trying to put gun stores, and gun stores specifically in Texas, out of business. And so, they're coming after us hard. And so all we have to do is to fight back as much as possible. So I've joined with Glock Incorporated. I've joined with Beretta USA Corp. I've joined with Smith & Wesson. I've joined with some of the major manufacturers in this country, major distributors in this country, and Central Texas Gunworks, along with National Shooting Sports Foundation. We filed a lawsuit against the state of New York on Thursday in federal court in Syracuse over their law that they passed. It's called the Express Purpose. It's circumventing Congress and trying to regulate tens of thousands of businesses operating in every state. So basically what they're saying is, if a gun store in Texas sells a firearm illegally, a person walks to the gun store, they fill out the background check form, get a background check, the ATF, the FBI says proceed, you can sell the firearm. They pass the background check. That gun gets stolen from that person. That gun winds up in New York and used in the crime. Then the New York State can come back and sue the gun store. They can sue the distributor. They can sue the manufacturer of that crime because the person stole the gun and used it in the crime. And so they're trying to put us out. And so gun companies, we're saying, look, we're fighting back. First of all, there is a Federal Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act that was enacted in 2005, which prohibits most lawsuits against firearms manufacturers over violence by people who use their products. Several legal attempts by New York to sue the industry have failed in the past. And so, there's a bunch of myths about this. And so I want to dispel some of those myths. So the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, PLCAA, what that means is some people think that shields gun companies from being sued for wrongdoings. Well, no, it really doesn't. So the fact is, there's 6 exemptions in the law expressly allow suits based on knowing violations of federal or state law related to gun sales, or on traditional gun grounds, including negligence or breach of contract. Congress specifically carved out exceptions to allow claims of negligence and negligent entrustment to proceed where allowed under state law. A retailer sells a firearm to someone underage or someone visibly intoxicated who then uses the firearm to injure themselves or others. The bill allows, product or liability cases involving actual injuries caused by a defective firearm or criminal misconduct on the part of the company. So those are just, that's just one of the myths. Here's another one. There's a myth out there that says, gun companies are singled out under federal law for special treatment. Well, no, that's not true. Here's the fact. Despite the political rhetoric that the contrary, that this act, and I want to make sure you understand it, it is the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, does not grant the firearm and ammunition industry immunity from suit, from being sued any different than any other industry, including small aircraft manufacturers, vaccine makers, hello, vaccine makers, hello. I know, this video was on Facebook, they would put a little warning label at the bottom. That's why we're not going on Facebook. Instead, this act codifies common law and common sense principles to prevent baseless litigation from bankrupting an entire industry without, and basically without these protections, many of America's most critical industries would go out of business from the time and costs of just frivolous lawsuits. Industries cannot and should not be held culpable for the wrongdoings of individuals who purchase their property, just purchase these items legally and then proceed to use them in a criminal manner. Just because I sell something to someone legally and then they go and do something wrong, they clearly break the law. I should not be held responsible for that. In that case, we're going to do that, and man, I tell you what, I can think of a lot of things we can do. Even under former President Obama, the Department of Justice has continued to defend the constitutionality of the PLCAA in recent briefs, and the DOJ struck back a gun control advocate's claim and asserted the position that this act narrowly crafted limitations is not a general bar of civil actions against firearms manufacturers and sellers. The statute includes a safe harbor that allows several types of actions to go forward. And the Department of Justice further argued that in acting the PLCAA, this act, Congress properly exercised its legislative powers within the constraints afforded by the Commerce Clause, and that any arguments that the PLCAA commandeers state governments by forcing them to enact or implement a regulatory scheme in contravention of the 10th Amendment are wholly without merit. Just think about that. So, all these that they're talking about, these are all just myths. They're trying to, say, well, you can't hold firearm industry, accountable. And that's just not true. If we clearly do something wrong, we can be held accountable. But what we're trying to say is, hey, you just can't, a state, can't just, bypass interstate commerce and decide to, just sue a manufacturer and put them out of business just to file a frivolous lawsuit. So that's why you have a Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act that was enacted in 2005. All right, so there's another case that we're involved in, and that is the case of the bump stock. And so there's an update of that. Well, the bump stock, guess what? There's a 3-judge panel in the Fifth Circuit that ruled against Cargill versus Department of Justice. That is our lawsuit that I have against the federal government. We're suing the ATF, we're suing the Department of Justice, we're suing the federal government for bump stocks. And it's not about bump stocks. It's about the fact that the ATF has said that there's something that you and I legally purchased. There's an item that was legal, and we bought this item. We took this item home. And all of a sudden, the ATF decides one day, you know what? We're going to ban that item. It's now illegal. And by possession of that item, you are a felon. And we're going to charge you and convict you of a felony because you are in possession of an item that actually was legal, but now it's now illegal. Because we decided one day it's now illegal. So we took the federal government to court. Central Texas Gun Works, Michael Cargill versus, the federal government. So this case went to our first federal court. That judge was out of Hawaii. And there's no surprise, your judges and the people in Hawaii don't like guns. Hawaii has very strict gun laws. So, of course, we lost that case, which we anticipated. And then we appealed the case to the Fifth Circuit. Well, the Fifth Circuit has 17 judges in the Fifth Circuit. There's 17 judges. When you get a case in the Court of Appeals, for example, the Fifth Circuit, you're going to draw a 3-judge panel. So in that court, there are 5 Democrat judges, Zach, 5 Democrat judges, and the rest of them are Republican. Out of the 5 Democrat judges, Zach, how many do you think, out of the 17 judges in that court, how many Democrats do you think we drew for a 3-judge panel to hear our case for the bump stock?
3.
All 3 Democrats. That's right. You win the prize, Zach. So we drew all 3.
Randomly selected, right?
Randomly selected. Yes. We won the prize. All right, so we had our case before the Fifth Circuit. The 3-judge panel heard that case, and then they came back with their ruling. Now, I'm going to wait and tell you, what they said and how that turned out. We come back from the break, because it's very interesting, because they kind of agreed with us that, hey, you know what? Cargill has a point. The ATF cannot create law. They agree with that. But they said, you know what? They suggested something else. And we come back from the break. I'm going to tell you what that something else was. Very tricky move. But you know what? I'm not going to tell you if we won or lost. What I'm going to tell you is there's another phase of that. And the next phase of that is for this case to be heard before all 17 judges on the panel, which I expect that we should win that case. And then hopefully all the other cases that are going in all the other circuits will catch up. And then hopefully the Supreme Court will pick one of the cases, either my case or the Asphyxian case or the Gunners of America's case. One of those cases hopefully will go forward, and then the Supreme Court will pick it and then decide. And so we'll see what happens then. But I need to tell you what happened with the Michael Cargill versus the federal government for bump stocks in the Fifth Circuit, how the 3-judge panel ruled, what exactly they said. We come back from the break, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to we're going to go to Chicago, talk about the crime rate in Chicago. Man, there's a website. I don't even know if I can say the name of the website. I'm going to have to ask my producer about that. There's a website that talks about all the different stats and statistics in Chicago. Man, there were 4 men arrested, involving in a deaths of 2 Nashvillians. That's in Nashville. Nashvillians. I can't even say that. Sounds right? Okay. And then we'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about some things in the Ahmaud Arbery case. We're going to talk about provoking in the in the case in Lubbock, Texas. Talk about that. I also want to talk about, this bunch of thugs. A bunch of thugs who were at a school board meeting, and a fight broke out. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Hi, this is Stephen Williford, the Barefoot Defender. I get my global gun news from Michael Cargill at Come and Talk It.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda Rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs, but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can't.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
We're back, and we're talking about the bump stock case. We're talking about Michael Cargill versus the federal government, the Department of Justice, the ATF. We're talking about this administration and previous administrations who imposed the bump stock ban. We filed a federal lawsuit, and so that case now sits in the Fifth Circuit, and I've instructed my attorneys at the New Civil Liberties Alliance to immediately push this case all the way forward to the Supreme Court without delay. I want, to go ahead and file the next motion that we need to file and continue forward. So here's what happened. So we presented the case, the bump stock case, before the Fifth Circuit, and it was a 3-judge panel that heard the case. All the 3 judges that we randomly drew, were all 3 Democrats, which were anti-gun. And so, as suspected, we were going to lose that case. There's 17 judges on this panel. The majority of the judges on the panels are Republican. But there are 5 Democrats and the rest are Republican. And there are 17 total judges. We threw the 3-judge panel. So they basically held that the ATF's regulation is the best reading of the machine gun statute. As a result, the panel said that it had no need to address Chevron deference. A copy of the decision, I'm going to read that now. So basically, we're filing a petition for rehearing in en banc. All right, so en banc meaning that we want our case to be heard before all 17 judges. So they ruled against us, the 3-judge panel, and basically here's what they said. We agree with Michael Cargill that the ATF does not, cannot regulate, cannot create law. They can only interpret law. But what they suggested was they're sending a special note. They're going to send this case to Congress so Congress can create a law and fix it. So they want Congress to fix the definition of machine gun because they acknowledge that we're right, but they're saying we're not right and the ATF is right. Makes no sense, does it?
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, it kind of makes sense to them for what they want.
Right. So we're going to push it to the Congress and want Congress to, and we all know that Congress is not going to create a law. There's no way this is going to pass the House and the Senate. They're not going to have the votes in order to do something like this. So I'm not worried about, Congress currently right now, this moment in time. And then I know things are going to change in midterm elections. I'm betting on that. So we're not worried about that. So what we need to do is continue to push this case, like I have instructed the New Civil Liberties Alliance to push this case forward, and to continue on and for this case to be heard before all the judges. So, and I'm not going to go through like their whole ruling there. It's a really long ruling. And so, but we'll see what happens. So, and then after that, we hope to make it to the Supreme Court, and hopefully have this case heard and win this case. And so it can be, we can do something for the entire country, for all gun owners. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is over in Chicago. Man, Chicago, there's a website called heyjackass.com. You got to go check this website out. It's called heyjackass.com. So when you go to this website, it talks about, some, different, just, it gives you an outline of, for the month, for example, the month of December, the current month, how many homicides, how many people have been shot and killed. It tells you about the last week, how many people have been shot and killed. It tells you about year to date for the entire year. Do you know that in Chicago, for the entire year of 2021, there have been 779 people shot and killed? 3,645 wounded, a total of 4,424 people shot, a total of homicides of 828. Wow, that's crazy. Hey, Zach, you know what happened, this past week? Last week?
A bunch of people got shot?
From December 12th to December 18th. Shot and killed, 14. Shot and wounded, 47. Total shots, 61. Total homicides, 14. Man.
That's a busy week.
Busy. Yeah. They I'm telling you, Chicago does almost, they will do in a month, what Austin used to do in a whole year. Used to, I say. Because Austin's we're getting up there. We're getting close to 100 homicides. Yeah. So we're getting really close. But check that website and go to heyjackass.com.
They have a lot bigger population too, right?
They do. Yeah. But check it out though. But Austin, as far as homicides per capita,
we're doing some pretty impressive numbers.
We're number one. Per capita, we're number one. That's right. Number one. Good job, Mayor Adler. Great job.
Austin is one of the 5 safest big cities in the country.
5 safest big cities in the country. That's right.
Guess it depends how you define safe.
That's right.
Are you talking about inside of the W, or you're talking about the rest of downtown?
Right. I think we're talking about the W.
That's safe in there.
It's safe in the W.
Yep.
Definitely safe in the W. Man, I tell you, I was looking at Austin, and there's a funny little story about Austin, and it talks about how last year when Mayor Adler, basically single-handedly tried to keep the bars closed in Austin, shut all the bars down. Yeah. Do you know that his wife is a real estate, her real estate firm, that they bought up like a bunch of the properties that went out of business? Boy, they don't know you people are stupid. No, they don't think you're stupid. They know you're stupid. They don't think it. They know you're dumb. I'm telling you right now. Let me say that again. So last year, when Mayor Adler shut down the bars in Austin because of COVID-19, you guys have got to shut it down, close it down. And those businesses went out of business because they, were not up and running. His wife, real estate firm, quietly bought up all those properties that went out of business.
And don't forget, right before that, he put out an advertisement, a PSA, saying, "It's okay. Go to the bar. Have a drink. Go eat somewhere. Go out."
They don't think you're stupid. They know you're stupid. That's why they don't even care anymore. Don't even try to hide it because you're all dumb. We're all dumb. And we don't do anything. Nothing about it. That is hilarious. Hilarious. And check that story out. I'm telling you, check it out for yourself. It's a story out of austin.towers.net. It talks about how one real estate company now owns more than 30 properties on East 6th as part of their longstanding beef with the mismanagement of Austin's numerous historic properties on East 6th Street. I tell you, it is hilarious.
Yeah, and if you want a visual representation of this at indyaustin.org/SALE, then it has this mapped out interactive map of Austin of SALE, Steve Adler's land empire.
Well, I tell you, and you guys, man, we just sit back and we're like, yeah, keep putting the same people in office. The same people in office, and they're just sticking it to you. Oh, in, out, just giving it to you.
Isn't he term limited now?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know. Don't even know. But they'll put someone else just like him back in office, and they'll continue on doing the exact same thing. Oh, in, out. It's a money-making scheme. One hand washes the other, and we don't do anything to stop it. Crazy. Just crazy. Man. I want to talk about these little thugs. There's some thugs. A little fight broke out at a school board. A little fight broke out. And, God, what city was this in? I'm going to say this was Glastonbury. I'm not sure what state this was in, but it was in Glastonbury. A fight breaks out at a Board of Education meeting. These are a bunch of thugs here. Nothing but a bunch of thugs. You're at a school. In Connecticut, you're parents, and we're at a school board meeting. You can't, you don't have the conflict resolution skills to, conduct a meeting and have a conversation and talk about your grievances, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and try to come to some type of common ground without using your hands, really? School board? Then how in the world what are you supposed to tell the kids? And guess what? There's a story that came out. We come from the break. I'm going to tell you about that one. There's a story that came out that talks about how kids that are going back to school now are just totally out of control. Totally out of control. Someone just sent me that story. I guess they're listening to what we're talking about. And they're just completely out of control. And it's a story. It's by the Washington Post. Well, I'll tell you now. We have time. It's from the Washington Post. It says, as fans return to high school sports, officials say student behavior has never been worse. Never been worse. As they competed in high school basketball game in May, this one group, says their teammate and younger sister Mia heard someone in the crowd yell a racist epithet in their direction. Neither said anything to the crowd. They're just, man, parents are just being the worst example for their kids. There's no wonder your kids are, picking up guns and committing school shootings because the parents are just terrible. This is, I don't know if it's COVID fatigue. What's going on? What do you think, Zach? Is it COVID-19 fatigue? People just fed up, being cooped up. They need to be, is it the vaccine? Could it be the vaccine?
Ooh. Or is it just irresponsible parenting?
Or is it just
mixed with,
or is it just bad parenting?
Yeah, counseling centers everywhere are just completely booked because people are having so much anxiety, depression, domestic issues because of COVID.
I don't know, but I don't know if did we show the fight? Check out that fight. We're a bunch of thugs.
Got a video of it?
Got a video of it. Want to see it? Here you go. So a bunch of thugs out of what was the name of that city again?
Glastonbury.
And in what state? Is it
Connecticut?
Connecticut. Some of your strict gun laws are in Connecticut. All your major manufacturers are actually moving from Connecticut. They're moving down southern portion of the country because they just have too strict laws up there. So they're bailing. But this is how this is how the little thuggish parents act in Connecticut at a school board. Bunch of thugs. Nothing but a bunch of thugs.
And it was over a mascot. They're talking about changing the school's mascot.
Let's change the school's mascot. No! Really? That means we're gonna punch each other in the face? Really? Is that what we come down to? Bunch of thugs. Terrible example for our kids. Terrible example. No wonder the kids are rotten to the core. We need to do better. Got to do better. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Hey, this is AWR Hawkins, Breitbart News, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
Hello, my name is Edwin Walker. I'm an independent program attorney with Texas Law Shield. I want to talk to you today about an issue that we see on a daily basis. In fact, you yourself will encounter it on a daily basis, and that is the subject of road rage. I am sure that you have all seen road rage. You may have actually been involved in a road rage incident. Now, if you're a responsible gun owner, I'm going to give you a few words of advice on how to react when you find yourself in one of these unfortunate road rage incidents. While on the roadways, we all observe something that makes us upset. Whether it's poor driving, unsafe driving, or just simply somebody being very discourteous. By all means, you should restrain yourself from engaging that person and telling them how bad their actions were, because this can be perceived as an act of road rage. If you're a lawful gun owner, you have a firearm in your vehicle, you do not want to be viewed as the aggressor in a road rage situation. Now, with regard to a situation where an individual has chosen to rage against you, and you are the actual victim of the road rage, if you and the other individuals are still in their automobiles, do not use your firearm to respond to any of the rager's activities. This is because law enforcement views the fact that you're both still safely in your metal boxes as removing any threat of immediacy that you may be harmed. So please, if you have a gun, somebody is raging against you, forget you have a gun. Don't display it, don't brandish it, don't show it, don't point it, and for God's sake, don't fire it. This could result in a lot of trouble for you. Now let's look at a situation where a road rage incident has escalated. It has escalated to the point where one of the participants has actually gotten out of their vehicle. We recommend that you stay in your vehicle at all times. Do not exit your vehicle, because the person who exits their vehicle is going to be looked at as the aggressor. If the other individual has exited their vehicle and they are not in contact with your vehicle and they do not have a weapon, then do not feel that you can display your weapon in an act of self-defense. People are allowed to just simply stand there and scream at you, scream whatever they want. Until they make a demonstrative effort to try to harm you, there is no immediate threat that would justify displaying or shooting or brandishing your firearm. Now, in the event that the person shows their own weapon, in particular a firearm, the existence of their weapon would give you reasonable belief that there was an immediate...
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're back, and I want to talk about a case that actually unfolded here in Austin, Texas. And what you had was the Austin Police Department. Well, you know what? I'm going to let someone else tell you about the case. So basically, jurors awarded a family of a man killed by Austin Police Department $67 million. So a jury in a federal civil trial has recommended that the city of Austin and two officers paid more than $67 million to the family of a man killed by Austin police on 6th Street in 2017. And I want to bring into the conversation Skip Davis, who's one of the attorneys that won this case. And by the way, congratulations, Skip Davis. I'm sorry for the family because this is about, we're talking a family that lost a loved one, but we're glad they're getting some type of compensation, for their loss of their loved one. But welcome to the conversation, Skip Davis, one of the attorneys for this case.
Hey, Michael, how are you guys doing out there tonight?
Outstanding, sir. So $67 million, and Ken Cassidy was, he's upset about this. He said, man, no way, we're not paying.
Ken Cassidy didn't even spend one day at the trial. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Those people were jurors, though they were everyday people from everyday walks of life here in Austin, Texas. They included Williamson County. They included Travis County. They included Burleson County. I don't know what these people are belly aching about. They didn't spend 1 minute at trial.
And tell us about the case. What was the young man's name and what happened and everything.
Yeah, sure. And you're right. We're looking for justice. Enough of this. Compensation is not always the end goal. In Landon Noble's case, the chief of police got out there in the media and said that Landon Nobles pulled a gun and fired upon the cops, and that the cops responded with deadly lethal force. Even though there was a score of witnesses, eyewitnesses right there, who even went on TV to dispute what the chief said had occurred. So this is lunacy that they think that this is a bad decision. They just didn't pay attention. They thought that they could just trot out a bunch of police officers who would lie and tell conflicting stories with physical evidence that completely demolish their fairy tale. And just because a cop hollers out that I'm a police officer and I have special training, blah, 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 that they get a pass and can shoot somebody 3 times square in the back at point blank range and then lie about it.
And the juries are getting it right. 2021 is a year that your juries are getting these cases right. And, you had someone watch this case on the news, a security officer that worked downtown. He was there when this situation unfolded. And he watched the news and he's like, hell, hold on. The police chief is wrong. That's not what happened at all. And so he came forward because he saw that interview by the police chief.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. He came forward and gave an interview to KXAN, the TV station here in town, and they aired it. And the chief of police has yet to retract his statement. And so we had to get a jury to tell them that this is a lie. And the jury was not tricked. I'm no magician. There was no sleight of hand. It was done in federal court in front of God and country. And frankly, it's embarrassing that the Austin Police Department thinks that they can shoot somebody 3 times in the back because they don't feel like chasing them, and then tell a bunch of lies about it and call themselves justified because, well, she was running from us.
Right.
That's just not the way it works.
Because there's like some kind of scuffle or fight or something downtown, and then someone fired off a shot, and then everyone ran, and they thought that, the person that fired the shot was, your client. And so the police threw a bicycle in the guy's path or something?
He was running away. There was a scuffle out in front of one of the clubs. And somebody who was there in the scuffle, nobody knows who, fired off a gun or threw a firecracker or something.
Okay.
And that's what happened in front of that club, the Moose Knuckle, which is ground zero for stupidity on 6th Street, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Something occurred there, and it startled some of the people who were there, not all. And I guess they suspected Mr. Nobles, and the police just descended upon him without giving any commands by their own testimony. And he took off running. He wasn't sure what was going on, so he took off running. And within 8 seconds of breaking free of the police, who never laid a hand on him but were trying to, within 8 seconds he was shot dead in the back. And they came up with some crazy story that, he shot at us. And then not all those witnesses, no, he didn't. They said, yeah, you guys just didn't see it. They're like, no, that didn't happen. So that's what happened, is that the jury is appalled that Austin police, A, engage in this continued ridiculous, illegal behavior, B, tell lies about what occurred, even though there were independent, credible witnesses, even when they all unanimously, and without wavering, without any discrepancies in their stories, say exactly what happened. They just trotted out a bunch of police officers who came up with 4 or 5 different stories, and none of them fit. And the coroner's report was he was shot square in the back at extremely close range.
And what about the halo camera or police body cameras?
This was the last shooting before APD required body cameras. You might remember back then, Mike, that there was a push by the Austin Police Department and APA, the association, to not have body cameras. They thought it was an invasion of their, they had every excuse.
Right.
But eventually the city council funded it. And eventually, I think about 2 years later, they finally started fielding, but it took them a long time. And they were in no rush to put body cameras on anybody.
Now, how does the jury come up with $67 million? That's something that you guys were asking for?
No, this case was really a bellwether. We wanted to use it as a bellwether. The lives of people who are injured and die at the hands of the police here in Austin, Texas, needed to be measured by the jury who speak for the people from whom they're chosen. And they, as the representative of the people, determine what's legitimate and what's acceptable for the community. we've been talking, Mike, you and I, for years about guns and irresponsible gun ownership and Yahoo, what I call Yahoo behaviors of gun owners in some cases. And we're finally now getting to find out what the limits of, quote, self-defense are, or what the limits of FAFO, fuck around and find out.
Oop, can't say
but
that.
The limits of that.
But go ahead.
We're starting to learn what the limits of that is.
Mm-hmm.
And it includes police behavior. And so what we've now learned with this verdict is don't lie, because if you lie, you don't get QI. QI is qualified immunity.
Mm.
And qualified immunity is what defeats most civil rights cases for police officers with officer-involved shootings. And it's also, we saw in the last couple of weeks the trial of those white guys in Georgia who murdered that guy Ambry. And we saw Carl Rittenhouse's trial. And then last week we saw the trial of the woman who somehow pulled her taser, even though cross draw mount. She still somehow hollers out taser and pulls her sidearm, which is ridiculous. We're starting to see what the communities think of these behaviors. So we know that in some way Rittenhouse was absolved of criminal liability. I'm sure he'll be sued and he'll have to face the music for his monetary liability, which is kind of like the OJ case. We're seeing that whatever those guys did or called themselves doing as a posse or deputized in the Ahmaud Arbery case, that's over the top. So that don't play. So don't come out here talking about you citizen arresting somebody over running through your neighborhood. We're starting to see that stuff. And video is so prevalent now that where before people would get away with some of these behaviors, they're not able to escape bystander video like George Floyd, or even stupid lawyer who gives out the video in the Ahmaud Arbery case.
Mm. Yeah, because they thought by giving out that video in the Ahmaud Arbery case that would clear their client of any wrongdoing. Turned out he did the exact opposite. It got him arrested days later. The exact opposite.
Yeah, and now they're facing multiple life sentences. Those guys are never getting out of prison.
No.
So the lesson that if there's anything to draw from this for the viewers of your show that aren't just in it for the politics, but they're in it for trying to figure out how to behave with their sidearms, is if you pull that gun, that is opening the biggest Pandora's box imaginable. So if you pull that trigger, that's a life-altering event for you, the trigger puller. If you hit somebody with the bullet, high likelihood you're going to prison.
All right, that's
and
right.
If you kill somebody, I hope you've got a house in Austin, Texas, worth $1 million to sell, because that's what it's going to cost to keep you from, possibly going to prison over your, quote, right to self-defense.
And this is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
This is Coleon Noir, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02, The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda Rights? Miranda Rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, we're talking with Skip Davis, attorney out of Austin, Texas, talking about a lawsuit that he won in Austin in federal court for $67 million that the Austin Police Department and two officers have to pay. $67 million for shooting a young man in the back multiple times in the back in 2017. I was looking at the bar that this happened outside of. It happened outside the Moose Bar, and I was checking them out. The Moose Bar, their liquor license says they're a blue establishment, which means that with a license or without a license, you can take a gun inside there. The only way you wouldn't be able to take a gun in there in that establishment. Now, the law was different back in 2017, but as right now, this moment in time, only way you wouldn't be able to take a gun in there is they posted a 30.06 sign or 30.07 sign for a license holder, or they posted a 30.05 sign or some other similar sign for constitutional carriers. So, but license holders, if they don't see the sign, they don't notice it, they go in. They have to tell them verbally. So if they're not checking people, they're not wanding people, they don't know if they have guns inside that bar or not.
Guns and alcohol just don't mix. Alcohol and some young people just don't mix. I'm a Second Amendment advocate, Army veteran, as you know. But something has to happen to make sure we don't have yahoos with guns in places where bad decisions occur.
Right.
The consequences are just too high.
Right. And I do want to ask you about Lubbock, Texas. That Kyle Carruth shooting Chad Reed in Lubbock, Texas. You know, we've shown that video, and we're going to play that video right now. And we're going to talk over it in the background there. So they're in Lubbock, Texas. They're at an office that looks like a house. Guy goes over, Chad Reed goes over to the office to where his ex-wife is to pick up his son. He says he's supposed to pick him up at 3:15. And he's, visibly upset. And he's saying, look, I'm supposed to get my son at 3:15. I'm not supposed to get him at, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock. I'm supposed to get him at 3:15. And, where's my son? And so he's like, look, I'm going to haul all you guys in the court. I'm going to haul you in the court. I'm going to haul, the guy whose office he's at in the court, and also the guy's wife, who happens to be a judge in the area. Going to haul her into court, And so the homeowner, the business owner, goes into the business, grabs a rifle, comes out, and says, "Get off the property." And so now he's, you're committing, basically he's saying you're committing criminal trespass. You need to leave the property. And so he's using force by showing the firearm. And you can actually do that. You can use force and show your firearm. You can't point the gun at someone. You can't threaten them with it, but you can display the firearm, and then all of a sudden something happens, and he takes a step back and he fires a shot at the ground. He points the gun down, fires a shot at the ground, does like a warning shot, and then something else happens. They get swung around there. The Chad Reed swings Kyle Carruth around. Kyle takes several steps back where he's about 10 feet away, and then points the rifle at him and shoots him right then and there. What are your thoughts on that case?
My thoughts is that whoever the jackass was with that rifle doesn't need me on his jury. The problem with that is a couple. The first, you point out accurately that you can brandish a weapon. It's called brandishing a weapon in order to demonstrate that you're armed. But that's the extent that you can do anything with that weapon and not be considered either provoking an incident or committing a felony crime. So you got a pistol in your tucked in your belt. You can lift your shirt and show the pistol. But if you pull that pistol and you aim it at somebody, that's aggravated assault. If you pull the pistol and rack the slide, that could be attempted capital murder. If you pull that trigger, it's definitely attempted murder. And if you hit somebody and kill them, it's a minimum manslaughter, reckless manslaughter. So in Texas, even though you might have the right to brandish, there is no such thing as a warning shot in Texas. Struck me that the fellow was trying to demonstrate his resolve, whatever that means, and he was going to show off, and he pulled that gun out, brandished it, and just went one step too far and fired it off into the ground, which gives now the angry father the right to defend himself against the use of deadly force, the illegal use of deadly force. Of course, the bad thing always is that usually the guy who doesn't have a gun usually loses those kind of confrontations.
Right.
So it's sad. This was sad and unnecessary. And if anybody thinks that was the intelligent use of force, and that you can defend your property with deadly force during the daytime that doesn't involve the illegal use of like deadly force, you're just wrong. You don't need to have a gun. You just don't need it. You're just not smart enough to have a gun. You just don't. You're endangering all of us out here if you think that guy had the right to do what he did. That's just not how it works in the law. It might be how it works in comic book land in your mind, but that's not how it works in the law.
And then what about the child custody thing? So, interfering with a child custody or a custody exchange.
That's really interesting, Mike, because that makes the guy committing a felony.
If they can prove that Kyle Carruth was actually interfering with a child custody exchange, then he wouldn't be justified in using force or deadly force.
That's correct. That's correct. You don't get to use deadly force in the commission of a crime. Unless it's a Class C misdemeanor, I think is how the rule reads.
And
I'd have to look at it again.
and what's weird about it, and what's weird about all this stuff is that everyone's recused himself. All the DA has actually recused himself of this case, and so it's been referred to the Texas Attorney General's office. Does that happen a lot? I'm just curious.
Well, only when there's interesting conflict like that. There's something going on in the relationships of the people that they feel that they don't want to be drawn in and investigated for their relationships in a case of this high magnitude. So the Texas Attorney General has a whole arm of its organization dedicated to the assistance of prosecutions, namely child sexual assaults, trafficking, human trafficking, sexual trafficking, and they have a unit that assists in murder cases because those are very expensive and resource-intensive investigations and prosecutions. So it's not uncommon for the Texas AG to pick up a case like this. It is uncommon to see district attorneys recuse themselves in their offices from prosecutions like that.
Okay. Man, all right. It's a lot of stuff. I'm curious how this is all going to come out, and if finally some charges are going to be filed against anyone in this case. Because this is going on for, and Texas justice is Texas is kind of slow when it comes to carrying out justice. It can take a while. Like you look at the shooting that happened in Austin. Downtown back last year when you had the protests / riots or whatever, the Sergeant United States Army, was indicted almost a year later, in that case.
Yeah, that's a case of what I call mutual dumb shittedness. These two knuckleheads encountered each other in just the most random way. And, they're both kind of justified, based on how they each themselves interpreted the right to defend themselves, right, against the other. So and see, that's the complication that we get into. And that's why the wiser thing to do is just walk away. You don't use your gun if you're just getting ready to get into a fist fight. If you're getting ready to get in a fist fight, just walk away. Too many people talk about lifting guns and fuck around and find out. But they
can't use the F word. Can't use the F word.
Oh, I'm sorry. But they, that FAFO, they keep talking that nonsense, but they really don't have the stomach for that behavior when it comes down to real scrutiny and the involvement of the court system in their case.
Right.
But yeah, that's an interesting case. It's going to also show us what the limits of provocation are.
Right.
Can you go outside, go get your gun and bring your gun and show it to somebody?
Right.
Or can you just demonstrate to somebody that if they come any further that you're armed?
Right.
Can you eject somebody with your gun? Everybody thinks you can do all these things, but now you're going to find out.
Right. All right, man.
It's good for business because I tell you, Mike, we need more education. The more educated the populace is about their use of guns, about their obligations and duties in carrying, about the consequences of poor choices, about the idea of FAFO, about the idea I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6, even though there's no opportunity, no chance that anybody's going to get killed, but you still pull the gun. Until they figure out by classes like guys like you, what the extents and limits are of their behaviors, we're going to have a lot of bad situations.
That's right.
But it's okay. It'll sort itself out.
They'll sort it out in court, and that's when they call you and have to pay you.
Sometimes when things are bad, I get phone calls to help people out in bad situations. Right. But really, I'd rather none of this. I'd rather us be more like the Swiss, and everybody's armed and nobody's trouble.
All right, man.
Right now, we're more like the Wild West or Uzbekistan or someplace like that. It's just almost reckless ownership just because they can own. And ownership, I think, requires responsibilities and obligations and duties to the public at large, not to be reckless.
All right. Thank you, man. Thank you, Skip. I appreciate you coming on and breaking all this stuff down for us. And, you enjoy the rest of your weekend and enjoy that. Tell that family, we're sorry for their loss. And it's, sad way, you have to go through compensation rather than prosecuting, but hopefully they can find some justice down the road.
Thank you, Mike. The Nobles family certainly appreciates what you do. And they're heartened by the decision of the jury to hold Officer Eagle and Officer Johnson responsible and liable for the murder of Landon Nobles.
All right, thank you, sir.
Any of those people out there hating on that need to go buy the transcript and read what happened at trial. Then you won't be so quick to be dismissive of these people and the result that they rendered when that jury delivered that verdict. But anyway, thank you for the nice weekend wishes, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Godspeed and success for next year.
Yes,
to
sir.
You and your family.
Thank you very much. You do the same. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Peace. This is Maj Toure. You're listening to Come and Talk It Radio with Michael Cargill.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda Rights? Miranda Rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent and my right to my attorney. Once you do that, the police legally shouldn't continue questioning you without your attorney present. But remember, there's a second part to this equation. After invoking your rights, you must exercise those rights. That means you have to keep your mouth closed. Protect yourself. Don't let the legal system take advantage of you after an incident. And Law Shield members, if you've been involved in a self-defense incident, remember to call the emergency hotline and speak with your independent program attorney.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, let's go to Nashville, Tennessee. So you may have heard about this case, maybe not. It's a case out of Nashville where it was a murder for hire case. And it's kind of linked to Austin, Texas, because, there's some people that run a security company, Zach. These people, security professionals. And apparently they were allegedly hired by Eric Charles Mond, 46 of Austin, Texas. He's a partner in the Mond Automotive Group in Austin, Texas, where they traveled to Nashville to kill a couple. So basically, 4 men are now in custody in connection with an alleged elaborate murder for hire scheme involving an Austin, Texas businessman, former U.S. military members, and a former member of the Israeli Defense Forces. A 3-count federal indictment unsealed charges these 4 defendants with conspiracy to commit kidnapping resulting in death, and carrying, brandishing, and discharging of a firearm during and in relation to a crime of violence. So Eric Charles Mond, 46 of Austin, Texas, a partner in the Mond Automotive Group, and also Gilad Peled, 47 of Austin, Texas, who held himself out to be a former member of the Israeli Defense Forces and owner of Spear Tip Security in Austin, Texas. Byron Brockway, 46 of Austin, Texas, a former active-duty United States Marine who previously served in Force Recon and Special Operations Unit, and owner of Inc. Force LLC, also security company in Austin, Texas. And Adam Carey, 30, of Richland, North Carolina, a former active-duty United States Marine who had previously served in the Marine Corps Special Operations Group. So in making the announcement, the police chief says, the chief basically, these guys traveled to Tennessee, committed this crime, and it took them, I guess, until now to really figure things out. The investigation began in the discovery of 2 bodies inside a vehicle on a Good Friday in 2020. This is back when the country was shutting down, the day before the country shut down. And so outstanding investigation work led by the detectives there led to multiple leads that drew their attention to other states, realizing this is a very complex case, reached far outside of Nashville. So they had to get the help of the FBI. And according to the indictment, Mond sometimes traveled to Nashville to visit a relative. And in early February 2020, he emailed a woman, Holly Williams, with whom he had a prior relationship for the purpose of seeing her during his upcoming visit to Nashville. After his visit to Nashville on March 1st of 2020, Mond received a series of text messages from an individual, William Landway, who had a personal romantic relationship with Williams, and Landway demanded payment from Mond and threatened to expose his relationship with Williams if he did not receive it. Mond then enlisted the services of Peled, Brockway, and Carey to assist with dealing with the threats to expose his relationship with Williams and the extortion demands. The indictment further alleges that on March 5th of 2020, Mond withdrew $15,000 from his bank account. On that same day, an intelligence report was prepared and provided by Peled by a relative of Brockway who worked for an internet-based security company. A series of actions were then undertaken by Carey and others, including traveling from out of state to Nashville to surveil Williams and Landway, and creating and using a Pinger account to attempt to communicate with Williams and Landway. On March 9th, Peled received a document entitled Tennessee Sitrep, which stated that Carey and others had surveilled Williams, confirmed her address and vehicle, confirmed that Landway had been staying at the same address, and advised that Carey and others would use everything at their disposal to stop the attempt extortion of Mond. On March 11th, Peled deposited $8,000 in cash into Spear Tip Security's business account and $7,000 in cash into personal bank account. And the following day, Mond transferred $150,000 via wire from his bank account to a bank account controlled by Peled. On the same day, Brockway, Carey, while armed with firearms, confronted Williams and Landway in the parking lot of Williams' apartment complex in West Nashville and murdered Landway by shooting him multiple times. They then kidnapped Williams and drove her and the body of Landway to a construction site on Old Hickory Boulevard in West Nashville, where they murdered Williams by shooting her several times. The bodies were then discarded at the construction site, and within hours of the murders, the Pinger account used to communicate was deleted, and a rental car rented by Brockway was returned. Carey then drove Brockway to Memphis, Tennessee, and Brockway caught a flight to Austin, Texas. Carrie then drove to Austin from Memphis. And so, man, and this case is really crazy because they're like, they've gone to each other's like business pages and actually posted like, good job, thank you for for great work on their Google page, as a review.
For a double murder, basically.
I don't know, but it's just really weird, man. It's like, wow, they don't even try to hide it anymore. Just in plain sight. It's like, wow. All right, so that's the Nashville. Sentencing date has been set for the men in who have been convicted of killing Ahmaud Arbery. So that sentencing date has been set for the father and son, Greg and Travis McMichael, and their neighbor, William Byron. William Byron will be sentenced on January 7th of 2022. So that's going to happen then. And then over in this Dante Wright case, you guys have heard about the police officer Kim Potter, who was a trainer, longtime law enforcement officer, thought she was pulling out her taser. Turned out she was pulling out her gun, ended up shooting Dante Wright. And so she's on trial for that. And she mistook her firearm for her taser when she fatally shot Dante Wright during a traffic stop near Minneapolis. And she broke down on the stands this week, apologizing and insisting she didn't want to hurt anybody. And that's negligent. It's an accident, but it is negligent. And so, people are prosecuted for being negligent. And I don't see anything wrong with that, unfortunately. And so the defense rested on Friday afternoon after the emotional Potter spent hours on the stand, breaking down several times as she described the chaotic moments that day in April. The jury instructions and closing arguments are scheduled to begin on Monday. And Potter, the last of more than 30 witnesses called over 8 days, began weeping early in her testimony, and she recalled the look of fear on another officer's face as he struggled with Wright. "It's nothing I've seen before," she said, weeping, recalling the officers reaching into the car to grab the 20-year-old father during the April encounter. And so that's negligent. It's all going to be negligent. And I think that, the juries are not going to give us any surprises here. Here it is, 2021, and the juries are getting it right in every single case. So we'll see what happens in this case. And I think the jury is going to get it right. They got it right in Austin, Texas, against the Austin Police Department. They got it right with the Kyle Rittenhouse case. They got it right in the Ahmaud Arbery case. These juries I think juries are very, very smart, and they're listening. They're paying attention, and they're saying, you know what, enough is enough, and we've got to hold people accountable for the things they do. You're a trainer, you're a police officer. Her job was to train other police officers. She should have known better. That was a taser, not a gun. Just like the gun store owner, we talked about last weekend, where the gun store owner picked up a BB gun and to play a trick on one of his employees, to shoot that employee with the BB gun. Turned out it wasn't a BB gun, it was a Glock 17. He shot his employee in the face with a Glock 17. How do you not know the difference between a gun, a real gun, and a BB gun? I wouldn't even point a BB gun at someone's face, let alone anything. So as always, people, more guns equals less crime. Go out there and buy yourself a gun. You've been listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
This is Coley on Noir, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.